Our mom always picked terrible men over her own kids. Now she's broke after selling her house to a scammer boyfriend and is begging us to save her after ignoring all our warnings. I honestly don't even know where to begin, but let me just say my mom completely ruined her own life, and she's got no one to blame but herself. Looking back, the root of it all was this twisted belief she always held, that your romantic partner should come before your own kids. For most of my childhood, that mindset was more irritating than anything else. It meant she always took my stepdad's side, no matter how wrong he was, even when she later admitted he was clearly in the wrong. Because of that, I spent a lot of time with babysitters while the two of them went off for alone time. But one moment in particular stuck with me. It really cut deep. She was out drinking with friends, and someone asked a hypothetical: if both my stepdad and I were drowning and she could only save one of us, who would it be? Without even blinking, she said she'd save him. That moment hit me like a truck. That's when I truly realized she loved him more than me. As the years went by, it became clearer and clearer that my stepdad wasn't just annoying, he was dangerous. He could be cruel, both emotionally and physically. And no matter how bad things got, my mother stood by him like he was some kind of saint. Now that I'm older, I'm almost sure he was dealing with undiagnosed bipolar disorder. He'd go from calm to explosive in seconds, flipping out over nothing. It would start small, a minor disagreement, or me hesitating to answer him, and then he'd go completely silent. That silence was our warning. We'd start walking on eggshells, terrified of setting him off. I'd lock myself in my room for hours, afraid to step out. And right on cue, he'd leave the house, get drunk, and come back in a full-blown rage. That's when he'd unleash hell. Screaming, slamming things, breaking stuff around the house. We lost a lot to his tantrums: the oven door, fancy blinds, dining chairs, even my computer. Nothing was safe. After he'd destroyed everything in sight, he'd go off about how he was done with us, how he was leaving for good. Those moments were the worst. I'd cling to my mom, trying to comfort her as she sobbed and tried to keep our broken home from falling apart even more. Then, days later, like nothing ever happened, he'd show up at the door. No apology. No explanation. Just walked in like everything was fine. And somehow, my mom always welcomed him back. She'd even make me hug him, like we were supposed to just forget everything and go back to playing happy family until his next meltdown. During those calm spells, he'd act overly sweet, telling me I was like a daughter to him, praising me left and right. But I knew better. I knew it wouldn't last. Still, I begged my mom to leave him. Every time, she'd give me the same excuse, that he was going to change, and I just needed to be patient. It drove me crazy, but as a kid, what else could I do? I had no power to change things. And then, she actually married him. Despite all the chaos, they went through with it. Not long after, she gave birth to my stepsister, Serena. But even with a new baby in the picture, nothing changed. My stepdad stayed just as unhinged as ever. If anything, the lack of attention from our mom kind of forced Serena and me to rely on each other. I was 4 years older, so I naturally took on a protective role. We'd walk to school together, talk about anything and everything, and share whatever little moments of peace we could find. In that bond, we found some comfort, something to hold on to when everything else felt like it was falling apart. That's probably why we're still so close today. As we grew up, his abuse shifted even more toward my mom and me. He knew she'd never stand up to him, so he just kept pushing. He'd kick me, throw my food away if I didn't obey, take my phone and go through everything, and even punish me by not letting me eat dinner if I talked back. He'd say cruel things like, "If you don't behave, no man will ever want you." And whenever my mom and he had a fight, somehow it was always my fault. He had this way of turning everything into a test of loyalty. Like, if I wore a regular t-shirt he didn't like, he'd make a scene in front of my mom and ask her if she really thought it was okay for her daughter to go out like that. And of course, she'd take his side every time. I'd be forced to change into a turtleneck, and if I got upset, she'd remind me that a good wife always stands by her husband even over her own children. By the time I was 16, I wasn't allowed to watch movies, listen to music, read comics, play computer games, or even hang out with anyone whose parents my mom and stepdad hadn't personally met. I tried to reason with them, but my stepdad would just laugh and say that women in his day stayed home, which is why they made good housewives. He'd tell me I needed to set a good example for Serena while he spent his own time lying on the couch, drinking beer and watching terrible action movies. One day, I even caught him watching porn in the living room. He didn't care at all, didn't bother to turn it off or even lower the volume. Serena walked in, completely confused. She didn't understand what she was seeing, and I panicked, dragging her to my room and putting headphones on her. When I told my mom, her response: "Men need that sometimes. Don't judge him." I begged her to at least ask him to watch it somewhere private, and when she finally brought it up to him, he twisted the whole thing, said I came home earlier than expected and made it sound like I was the one who'd done something wrong. In the end, nobody said a word about it again. We just swept it under the rug like everything else. Eventually, when I turned 18, I got accepted into a good university, and I left. I didn't hesitate. My mom and Serena begged me not to go so far away, and honestly, it shattered me inside. But I knew this was my only shot. My stepdad told me that if I really left, I'd never be welcome back. And honestly, that threat just confirmed I was making the right choice. At that point, I'd stopped caring about his threats or opinions. I had made a promise to Serena that once she turned 18, she could come live with me. And I meant it. That was the real beginning of my life. Leaving for university felt like ripping off a suffocating blanket. It was terrifying but freeing at the same time. I was finally stepping away from the toxic mess I'd grown up in and into a world where I could breathe. Living on my own taught me a lot: how to stand on my own 2 feet, how to keep going when things got hard. I threw myself into my classes, made friends who actually supported me, and opened myself up to a future I never thought I'd get to have. Through it all, that promise to Serena stayed in the back of my mind. I studied hard, not just for myself, but for her. I wanted to land a solid job and give her a real chance at the life we both deserved. Watching her grow up from a distance was bittersweet. But when she finally turned 18 and moved in with me, it felt like the start of a brand new chapter for us. Unlike me, school had never been Serena's strong suit. Her grades weren't great, but I managed to get her enrolled in a nearby community college. She gave it her all, more than I ever expected, and was determined to make something of herself. Living together was everything I hoped it would be. We shared chores, stories, even the little things like cooking dinner or binge-watching shows after a long day. Seeing her push through school and grow into her own person made me proud beyond words. We leaned on each other. When one of us had a rough day, the other picked up the slack. It made everything feel less scary, knowing we weren't alone anymore. During this time, my relationship with our mother had faded into rare phone calls. She only ever called me when my stepdad wasn't around, probably so he wouldn't catch her. He still held a grudge, especially once Serena left to live with me. That seemed to light a fire under him. He started blowing up her phone, demanding she come back home. She kept telling him she was happier with me, and that only made him angrier. He even went so far as to threaten us, saying he'd show up, beat me to a pulp, and drag Serena back home. We lived in fear for a long while, always on edge, wondering if he'd actually show up at our door. Eventually, after I landed a stable job, I moved us into a gated community. Having 24/7 security gave us a sense of safety we hadn't felt in years. A few years passed, and one day Mom called with unexpected news: my stepdad had been diagnosed with terminal liver cancer. Years of heavy drinking had caught up to him, and there was nothing doctors could do. I hate admitting this, but I didn't feel bad. Not even a little. He sent me this long, dramatic message saying how sorry he was for everything he'd done to me, begging me and Serena to come back and take care of him. He sent Serena a similar one, calling her his flesh and blood and saying we should spend his final days together. Neither of us hesitated. We blocked him immediately. We didn't care if he lived or died. Mom was devastated that we refused to forgive him. She kept telling us he was truly sorry and didn't understand why we were being so heartless. She said he cried in bed all day missing us and that we were cruel for not letting him find peace. I told her straight up he was going to hell, forgiveness or not. That didn't sit well with her at all. She tried to guilt us into visiting, pulling every emotional string she could, but we didn't budge. Eventually, he passed in his sleep. Honestly, I wish his ending had been more painful after everything he put us through, but life doesn't always work that way. After he died, Serena and I decided to go back to support Mom during the funeral. We figured she'd need us, even after everything. I took care of all the arrangements while Mom cried to every relative about what a wonderful husband he had been and how she would miss him forever. Once the funeral was behind us, we gently brought up the idea of her moving in with us. We didn't want her to be alone. But to our surprise, she turned us down. She told us that my stepdad had left her everything: the house, some bonds, and other assets. Then she pulled out the paperwork, and I was stunned. Apparently, he'd saved up a surprising amount of money. He even had a life insurance policy she was about to cash in. Despite everything, I was actually happy for her. She'd been through hell with that man, and at least now she had some financial peace. He had also left Serena a small amount of money in his savings account, not much, but still, it was something. With that, Serena and I headed back to our place, ready to resume our lives. We stayed in touch with Mom every day, calling to check in and visiting during the holidays. She even started working part-time at a library and began making friends with other women her age. For a while, it seemed like she was finally living for herself. Then, out of the blue, she dropped a bomb on us: she was dating someone new. She sounded excited and wanted us to meet him. She said he was perfect for her. We were curious, maybe even cautiously happy for her. But when we went to visit and saw who this perfect guy was, we were floored. His name was Derek, and he was barely older than me. At first, we tried to stay open-minded. Age is just a number, right? But the way they acted around each other made it hard to ignore how off it all felt. The age gap was jarring, sure, but what really bothered us was how fast things escalated. In just a few months, she was buying him expensive gifts and had even added him to the deed of the house my stepdad left her. And the way they met? Yeah, that raised even more red flags. When we asked Mom, she nervously said they'd met at a cafe. But when we asked Derek, he spilled the real story. Apparently, he was out getting blackout drunk with his friends at a pub. My mom was there too, celebrating a friend's retirement. His buddies dared him to find and kiss a cougar, and lucky us, he picked our mom. They made out, and she invited him back to her place. He never left. As their relationship grew more serious, Derek convinced her to add his name to the house deed, telling her they were going to get married. So anyway, a few months into their relationship, Derek gave my mom this dramatic sob story about how rent was too expensive and how he just couldn't afford to live alone anymore. Of course, she felt bad for him and said he could move in until he got back on his feet. It started out as a casual thing, friends with benefits, but before long, they were officially dating. And just like that, my mom was completely smitten. Head over heels, like a teenager with her first crush. But to us, it was painfully obvious that Derek was using her. And Mom? She was soaking up all the attention like she'd been starved for it her whole life. We stayed with them for a few days, and in that short time, it became crystal clear Derek didn't lift a single finger. He'd roll out of bed around 11 a.m., then spend the rest of the day glued to his video games. The only time he'd leave his little gaming cave was when Serena and I made ourselves something to eat, at which point he'd stroll into the kitchen and expect us to make him a plate too, like we were his personal chefs. Meanwhile, Mom was out working long hours at the library, coming home exhausted, and still somehow finding the energy to cook for him. And if he didn't like what she made, he'd complain. She treated him like a helpless toddler waiting on him hand and foot, while he contributed nothing. It was pathetic, honestly. By our last day there, Serena and I had seen enough. We decided it was time to confront Mom and have a real conversation. We laid it all out, how he wasn't working, wasn't helping around the house, and how she was footing the bill for everything, all while he sat there doing nothing. We even brought up how she'd added him to the house deed when they weren't even married. That's when things got ugly. Derek snapped, saying we had no right to judge their relationship and that if we kept pushing, he'd teach us a lesson we wouldn't forget. Yeah. He actually threatened us. And what did my mom do? She defended him, said he was a good man deep down and that we just didn't know him well enough. We pressed her on the deed and asked how she could hand over something so valuable to someone she barely knew. She told us they were planning to get married, and she trusted him. She said we had no business interfering in their relationship. It felt like déjà vu. Here she was, once again choosing a man over her own daughters, putting all her faith in someone who clearly didn't deserve it. She had made a massive decision behind our backs, and now she was doubling down, trying to justify it even when it was obvious Derek was taking her for a ride. After more arguing, she finally told us that if we couldn't accept him, we should just leave. That it was her house now, and we needed to show him respect. That was the final straw. Serena and I walked out, heartbroken and done. It hurt like hell to see our own mother pick a man over her kids again. After that, the communication pretty much stopped. She didn't call us, and we didn't call her. She'd made her choice, and we weren't going to fight it anymore. Then, about a month ago, we both woke up to a bunch of missed calls from her. It had been a long time since she'd reached out, so we were worried. I finally called her back, and she sounded frantic. She said she was flying over to see us and asked me to arrange an Uber to pick her up from the airport. Naturally, I asked if Derek was coming with her, because if he was, he wasn't setting foot in our home. She said no, he wasn't coming, but wouldn't say much else. It felt off. When she arrived, she looked like she'd been through a war. Clothes rumpled, eyes swollen, just completely drained. We sat her down, and I gently asked what was going on. That's when she broke down sobbing, clutching her chest like she couldn't breathe. It shook us to the core. Serena ran to get her a glass of water, and we sat there, waiting in stunned silence until she was ready to talk. Eventually, she told us everything. After she cut us off, Derek really sank his claws in. With no one left around her, he took complete control. He convinced her to sell the house, saying they needed a bigger one to start fresh before the wedding. And she, blinded by love and wanting to believe in something, agreed. Once the sale went through, he took all the money and used it to buy another house, but this time, it was only in his name. When she asked to be added to the deed, he got defensive, saying he was the man, and that the house should belong to him. He told her not to worry because he'd add her to his will. Which, let's be real, was absolute garbage. She was older than him. There was no way she'd outlive him. She pushed back, told him it wasn't fair, and that's when things escalated. He got violent, physically violent. Terrified, she grabbed what little money she had left and ran. She booked a flight straight to us. Serena and I just sat there in shock. We couldn't believe what we were hearing. She told us how lonely she'd been, how desperate she was to feel loved again. And in chasing that, she gave everything away. Every last dollar. Now, she had nothing, not the house, not her savings, nothing to her name. She was crying, saying that family was all she had left and begging us to help her. Right now, as I write this, she's asleep in the next room, completely worn out. And I'm just furious. I want to scream at her, tell her how badly she hurt us, how she betrayed us again. She threw us aside for some loser who sweet-talked her, and now that he's done with her, she expects us to pick up the pieces. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to shut the door in her face. The other part is terrified she'll fall for the next smooth-talker who comes along and abandon us all over again. Update 1. Thanks to everyone who's commented. I've read them all, and I appreciate the support more than I can say. Just to clarify legally, my mom gave Derek permission to take the house money. She willingly signed the deed over to him. So there's no suing him. She also refuses to go to the police about the abuse. Says people will judge her if she files a report. It drives me crazy. She won't do anything to protect herself, yet she expects us to come to her rescue and act like none of this ever happened just because we're family. I've made up my mind to talk to her soon. I can't let her pull us back into this mess. Serena agrees with me. As her older sister, I feel like it's my job to protect her even from our own mother, if I have to. Update 2. Hey again. It's been 2 weeks since my last update. I wanted to give Mom some time to rest before having the conversation I've been dreading. Yesterday, Serena and I finally sat down with her. We stayed calm, kept our emotions in check, and prepared to say what needed to be said. So when we finally sat down with Mom, we didn't sugarcoat anything. We started by voicing our frustrations and concerns about everything that had happened with Derek. We told her we understood she was hurting and that her situation wasn't easy, but until she was ready to take action, there really wasn't much we could do. I explained that we empathized with her pain, but Derek's behavior had been manipulative and abusive. And if she wasn't willing to do something about it, our hands were tied. Her eyes widened as she listened, and she asked what we were trying to say. I told her, gently but firmly, that it was time to reconsider her decision not to report him. Getting help didn't mean she was weak. In fact, it would be one of the bravest things she could do. I reminded her that the fear of what society might think shouldn't come before her own safety. But she dug in her heels. She said it was her life and she'd already made up her mind. That's when I knew we had reached our limit too. I looked her in the eye and told her that all our lives, it felt like she always chose her boyfriends over us. First our stepdad, now Derek. We were done coming in second. She tried to interrupt, saying she could change, but Serena cut in before I could respond. She told Mom she was tired of living without a real, stable family. That she couldn't keep watching Mom drift in and out of our lives whenever it was convenient for her. I agreed and added that family is everything to us, but that should have mattered to her before she picked Derek over us. We reminded her that we warned her about him, but she ignored us and pushed us away. Serena and I had both reached the same conclusion: we couldn't keep cleaning up after her messes. Not anymore. That's when Mom started crying, accusing us of being ungrateful and selfish. The whole conversation was tense and emotional, but it needed to happen. Then Serena said something that really hit home. She told Mom that I'd been more of a mother to her than she ever was. And the truth is, we've grown strong enough that we don't need her in our lives anymore. Mom just sat there sobbing. And after a long pause, I quietly told her she had 1 week left to stay with us. After that, we'd be asking her to leave. She immediately panicked, shouting about where she was supposed to go. I told her that if she wanted, we'd help cover her rent for a few months so she could get back on her feet, but after that, she'd be on her own. That's when she snapped. She screamed that she wished she'd never had us. We didn't engage. I simply told her she could always reach out to other relatives for help if she needed it. To give everyone a breather, Serena and I left for a little while and went out for ice cream. Sitting there in the car, we both broke down. It had been such a hard conversation, but we knew deep down it had to happen. All we can do now is hope Mom chooses to change her life, instead of resenting us for not fixing it for her. Only time will tell. Update 3. Hi again. Can't believe it's already been 3 months since I last posted. I've been getting a lot of messages asking for updates, so here it is. Surprisingly, things have been going okay between us and Mom. Despite all the yelling she did that day, she ended up returning to her city and went back to work. She didn't really have another option. Before she left, she apologized to us again, and since then, she's been unusually sweet. We're still being cautious though. We didn't send her any money directly, we pay the rent straight to her landlord, just to make sure she can't use it for anything else. After everything she lost to Derek, we're understandably wary. As far as we know, she hasn't contacted Derek at all since the breakup. Wherever he is, he's probably living his best life. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about him since Mom refuses to press charges. As for us, Serena and I are doing great. I recently got a promotion at work, and I'm loving it. Serena's doing amazing in her career too, and I couldn't be prouder. Through all this, we've become stronger. We're building a life that feels steady, healthy, and real. Despite the ups and downs with Mom, we're focused on creating something better for ourselves, something that finally puts our own well-being first. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters most.